Hey, buddy.
Hey, man.
Here.
You got some jamming going on? You in the shop?
Yeah, I'm at the shop. Hold on. I got to switch it over. I don't know why it's not. Why isn't it? Watch right now. Okay, there we go. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, there we go. All right. It's speakerphone. Is that clear enough, or do you want me to go to?
No, that should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm in my little home studio, got my phone plugged into my board and everything, so we should be golden.
Nice, good. How are you, bud?
I'm groovy, man. How are you doing?
Not too bad. It's strange times. There's strange things.
That's for
ways
sure.
Of dealing with them, and yeah. But overall, I can't complain. Life's good.
Well, I noticed, speaking of strange times and trying to get through them all, you got the race car ready to go, and you're headed to California. So are they actually racing? Are they going to be fans, or is this just like your group?
No. This is just my driving group. I've got some pretty high-end friends, which are pretty generous, and they keep inviting me to these private track days at some of these tracks, and I'm like, really? I mean, I can't do anything. And they're like, no, come on, just show up. It's all done. It's already a done deal. So it's a pretty high honor thing to be able to join these guys, and the caliber of cars that they're driving are really exciting to be around and to see the attempt to chase for a couple laps on the track. Maybe I should say a couple turns on the track.
Well, I mean, the Beamer that you sent the picture of the other day, that looks pretty quick, but what are you up against? These high-end friends of yours, I'm assuming, have probably got some pretty expensive cars.
Yeah, it's not a matter of how fast the car is per se. It's really, in the Paul Newman film, one of his famous quotes is to drive a slow car fast, and I believe in, and that really is the deal. This is a really well put together car. One of the last owners spent a lot of money on this car, and it's really set up well for the track. So it's a nice compliment to my driving skill and level of driving, because it's not too much car, because when you get a car that's really, really fast, it can be very hard to handle, and everything comes at you equally as fast. So it's one of those things where I hope that it's equal to my driving skill, and I go there and I'm comfortable, and yet I can push myself a little bit when I'm up against someone who's kind of comparable, and I can chase them a little bit. But what it boils down to is really traction. If you have a car that's really fast, you better have brakes to match it, and handling and traction. So this car has upgraded brakes, upgraded suspension, obviously roll cage and all the safety equipment. But, when I come into a corner full steam, I can pretty much handle that corner because of the traction. And that's what makes it so exciting. And that's the difference between driving a street car on the track with a little bit of upgrade to driving a fully modified, what was a street car at one time, but totally, stripped down and cleaned out and built for the track. A track purpose car is really, it's a whole level up. And the cool thing too is that I trailer it there, which means if anything was to happen to it, I don't have to figure out how to drive it home. Which, you're on the track pushing boundaries, so stuff happens, and it's nice to be able to tow it home and not be like, how am I going to get home? I crunched my car, And plus, none of us want to pay the tow fees to drag a car off the track, because you think they're expensive on the street. Wait till you hit the track. So fortunately, it's been a very affordable thing for me to do, but I'm sure there's times when it won't be, and I don't look forward to those days.
Like, you don't want to call the wife or even your son and be like, all right, grab the Pinsgauer, come get me because I blew it up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not something I want to even experiment with. So I tend to drive a little more on the conservative side. I'm not out to prove anything. I'm not out to compete with anybody. I'm just competing against myself, and I'm not very competitive. So
this is true. You're out to have fun, which is what it's about anyways, right?
Exactly. And it's a nice escape. And especially in these times, I traded my other car, which I got, with a salvage title and high miles, and it was a budget car. And I basically got what I paid for it and traded it partially for this, plus kind of a helmet paint job kind of thing. And I was able to get into a nice little car, and it's a nice escape because, sometimes we need an escape. I don't drink, smoke, or do drugs, so I don't have those escapes. And, I can either hike up the mountain, jump on a motorcycle or bicycle, or be invited to a track day that I'm happy to attend. So, it's nice when you have outlets in life and not vices. So
that's true.
It's a good place to be.
Now, you said that
you know me.
I do. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good place. Well, you're always just like in the best mood. And I think a big part of that might be because you don't have any vices. So you always feel pretty good just health wise.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's we all go through challenges in life and health challenges too. But I think when your baseline is pretty solid and you've worked all your life to and educated yourself to create that solid baseline, I think it's much easier to flex and recover. And metaphorically, even living up here in altitude, someone comes up here and they climb up, a flight of stairs and they're winded, and it takes them longer to recover. But those of us that live here and are acclimated and have that solid baseline, it just takes us a very short time to recover, even in something more extreme. So, I kind of look at that in life and try not to get too out of whack with anything. And of course, death, and, we lost our dog recently, and that hit a heavy blow, and I got some criticism with something I was doing, and that kind of tapped. And normally I think those would be I think they'd be easier to rebound from, but because of the current climate of things, I found it a heavy blow. And it's funny because it has snuffed a bit of that consistent joy and happiness, because I didn't realize that once I get hit below that threshold, it's much harder to recover. And I got to say, that's why I said in the beginning, that the current climate of things, it's different. It's hard, and I can only imagine how hard it is for so many other people right now. I have to keep that perspective and say, look, I know it's relative, but I'm in a really good position in life and the world, at my age and health and financially and everything else. So, I think it's really important to keep that in perspective and keep that smile on your face, because, man, it could be worse.
Yeah, it definitely could be. What, other than driving, I mean, obviously you've got your family there and you hike around Tahoe and everything, but other than driving, what do you do to just entertain yourself? Is it the art? Is it the nature stuff? You and I usually hung out, but we were always in Vegas, and so it's not like we could just go out and do whatever we wanted because we were in some other town. So what do you do to sort of take the load off?
Yeah, that's the beauty of living where we live. We came up here for business, but it ended up planting roots, and Tahoe is just, it's exponentially beautiful, and it just keeps getting more beautiful the more time you can spend, involving yourself and what's here. We've got, hiking, biking, trails, kayaking, boating. You can get in the air if you want. There's air balloons. There's everything you could imagine. It's kind of a touristy town. So, but as a local, you go during the week and it's rather quiet. I've made my hobbies my lifestyle. So because I'm an artist and get to participate in entertainment and many other things, everything I do is kind of quasi work related. And this was an argument I took with my criticism, is I said, look, I'm not playing at the track every weekend. I'm not there all the time. I right now I'm trying to get out there because the season's ending and we're done for another 6 or 8 months. So I want to get down there and get some days in. But I meet clients down there. I end up painting helmets or doing commissioned artwork, and it's kind of a write-off for me because it's social time, and my social the social part of my life usually yields some sort of work or some sort of connection to something else that's work related, and it really is become kind of the circle of who you know and who you meet. And in the art world, for me, that's gold. And And so I get to enjoy some of these things and get work from them too. And I got to say, it's a really special and privileged place to be in life, to work. I'm 50 now, and to work these years to establish, myself as an artist and kind of get out in the world and be able to do these things. So even SEMA, SEMA's a lot of work, as you know, a lot of work. But something great always comes out of it. And I think that's kind of a good example of how my life is in general. But everything I do is fun. It's attitude. Even when I'm in here polishing a car, whether it's my car or a friend's car or someone else's car or a lady that came up with dull headlights, I'm like, let me polish your headlights real quick. I mean, it doesn't matter. I take joy in it because it's creating something and fixing something and making something better again. And it's very rewarding for everyone involved. And I try to share that experience.
Yeah. The only time I'd ever been in Tahoe before was actually for your dad's birthday bash in the basement of the Harrah's. I don't even remember what year that was, but I can tell you there's a red Mustang down there. I think he switched cars out every now and then, but there was a red Mustang then. Is that what brought you to the Tahoe area originally? Did you get there before Dad did, or how did you end up in the mountains hanging out?
Good question. So when Dad opened that business in 2004, he joined forces with Harrah's, and it was a licensed business, which it's now closed. It's been closed for a couple of years, but a lot of new regimes up here and things have just relationships have changed. But I was going through divorce and kind of looking for a fresh start. I needed some consistency in my life because the judge literally said that I couldn't make a living as an artist because it was too inconsistent, which I think was very wrong of him, and he's since gone. But it's so Dad and I talked, and he said, look, why don't you go up to Tahoe, start new. It's a beautiful place. Get a job with Harrah's. You'll have to qualify like everyone else and go up there and see what you can make of life up there, at least just for a while, until things settle down and you figure it out. So I did. I took his advice and I came up here and I started in the kitchen and moved my way through every job there except for cocktail, because that was reserved strictly for women. But I ended up being,
you would look great in a skirt, though.
Well, they were pretty short back then. But I worked into middle management and worked there for a long time, so about 10 years. So that's what brought me up here, and we planted roots. My wife and I planted roots, and my now wife, and 15 years now, and we love it here. And we were thinking of moving this year back down to Monterey area. We wanted to go to the valley, Carmel Valley, and we found some places which were quasi affordable. And boy, COVID hit and everything changed, and now the market is skyrocketing again. And so we decided to just, hey, we're in a good place. Let's just stick around a while.
True.
So we're here to stay,
You are in definitely a beautiful place to stick around, that's for sure. Also, happy 50th, old man. I mean, seriously.
Oh, thanks. I'm almost 51 now. It's almost. I know, it's so surreal. It's like, well, once you get there, you're like, what?
I know. You hit that. It's a number, but you read it and you're like, holy crap, really? Me? 50?
Yeah, it's a number with a history and an expectation. So that makes it dangerous.
Well, speaking of California, you've been going back and forth a whole lot. Obviously, you help your dad out with, you've moved car stuff. You've helped him out. He just had another birthday bash on the island that was like a boat-in and a pay-per-view thing. Were you down there with that, or did you kind of watch it off in the sides?
No. And rather, I'd like to change terminology.
Sure.
Dad doesn't need help. I think he'd go, okay, first of all, let's get this right. I don't need any help. Dad allows me to participate from time to time on invitation, not to help. We'll make that very clear. No, I'm just teasing. I didn't participate at all this year. With all this COVID stuff, believe in it what you want, it exists out there, and we have to abide by all these rules. And so with that, I think Dad just wanted to simplify and focus in on what he was doing without a lot of participants. And so he did that on his own with his little circle with no family. But and then he went down to Cabo and was actually down there for his birthday, and he did a quickie appearance on stage acoustically. But he's trying to find a way to work right now, and that's a real challenge in entertainment because you kind of don't have an audience. So this pay-per-view thing he did, I'm sure it was very costly. I doubt it was, profitable, but Dad serves his fans. And I think I can speak freely and say, he works very, very hard to take care of his fans and his family and his friends. And he found a way to do it, even though it was probably a lot out of pocket, I would assume. I don't know the business end of it, but I can't imagine that was a very, easy thing to pull off.
He did a pay-per-view on an island. They had to boat everything in. I'm willing to bet that was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think Catalina has a lot of rules and regulations and stipulations too. So
because it's like a wildlife preserve in a lot of areas, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, did they have to earmuff all the animals? I don't know.
Not for your dad. If somebody crappy came out, I could see that. But for your dad, I think they just let him rock it out, right?
But what a cool thing! I mean, I don't think numbers will be in for a while, but I think it was successful for him and continues to be. It aired a couple days ago, and you can download it as a pay-per-view. And I think once you push play, you have like 18 hours or something to view it. But it's a really, really cool thing. It was a great show. It was right after Eddie's passing. I mean, literally like the next day.
Yeah, it really, I was going to bring that up because out of nowhere, well, for most of us out of nowhere, Eddie was gone. It was like there was no warning, nothing. All of a sudden, we've all lost a legend and somebody that we've listened to for our whole lives. And, your dad's got this annual show he puts on an island, and, Eddie passes, and it's like, holy crap, that just kind of put a blanket on everything.
Absolutely. And then, he was probably so stressed and so riddled with angst, with the upcoming show. And then to have Eddie pass, I like you said, I don't think it was any great surprise, especially to those of us that have kind of been following from the inside.
In the circle.
But Dad, of course, I think I was more empathetic to him and what he was probably going through because I've seen it and heard it all these years. And he didn't even tell me or anyone in the family that I know of that he had been talking with Eddie. We kind of suspected it. I know my brother and I had some words about it, but and we were kind of like, I think, but he never said anything. So he really kept that to himself, and he honored their agreement, not to let anybody know and not to let it get out. And at least not from the Hagar side. Yeah. And I love that they were talking and bearing the hatchet and kind of resurrecting their love. Because I remember as a kid, I mean, they were so close. They were inseparable. They truly were like brothers and best friends. And, and they were so emotional and so inspired, and everything was so on fire back then. It was really, really a passionate time, and what my mom and I kind of refer to as the golden years growing up in Malibu, when my brother was just very young, and that family bond was still together with my mom, and it was really a very, very exciting time. And Eddie was a part of daily life. Him and Val's brothers, they lived one house over from us. There was a house between us. And, Dad would yell from the balcony every morning, word, Edward, you up, and they'd start yelling. Then we go down on the beach, or we go to the house. And it was always like we were two families that grew together and grew up together for a long period of time. And so when things went south, it was heartbreaking because it was a divorce. I lost a family, and it was real hard. And I didn't keep in touch with anyone just because of honoring, my family and not complicating it. But I missed all them. And David Bertinelli and I reconnected on Facebook a couple months ago. But I don't know Wolfie as an adult. I held him as a child. I watched him when he was a kid. And
well, you had like a good, 15, 17 17 years on him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you were a teenager or an adult yourself when Wolfie was born.
Yeah, exactly.
So Andrew was closer to Wolfie then.
No, because Andrew was 7 when Dad left, and shortly after, when he left my mom, and then remarried, and so they were kind of doing their own thing, and we were kind of left at the wayside for a while he was establishing his new family, and so we weren't really around for all that. Andrew would go out on tour once in a while, but I don't think he knew him either. So, it's really sad in all this, and I hope that it brings the families back together to some degree, and we'll see what happens. But it was very close. I found myself very, very emotional after Eddie's passing, and just bringing up all those memories, and that was a big part of my childhood. But the world mourned because Van Halen touched everyone in some way or another, whether you're a fan of one side or another. It impacted your life. So his loss, we've lost a lot of people this year. Eddie Money was a big family friend. I don't want to leave him or anyone else out.
Yeah, but, you were big friends with Eddie.
Yeah, well, currently too. Eddie participated in most of the family events, the charities, the shows, the birthday bash. I mean, he was a staple in all that. And that was a hard loss too. And my brother was very close to that family. He was dating the daughter for a long time, but off and on. But they were very close friends, and it's a very hard loss, But Eddie I hadn't seen, and since they had that last rekindle and tried to go out on tour, and boy was that a nightmare. And that was the last time I kind of saw Eddie. We talked through a couple people and just sent greetings, and so we had no issues between us. But I hadn't spoken to him in ages, and yet, boy, it just came up and hit me. And it's weird because when I see photos of him, in current years, with the short hair and he's all gray, and his face looks fuller, I didn't recognize him, and I didn't have that connection. But when I saw photos when I knew him, with Dad, that's when it was just like these waves of emotion. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck? It's very strange. But again, like I said, I think everything's been elevated this year because of the climate of the world. And so this kind of stuff really, really hits you hard.
Yeah,
it really hit me hard.
I was thinking about that because I Googled you. I mean, you and I are buddies, but I had to Google you on this one because
none of it's true.
Well, you and I only see each other very briefly. It's like a couple days every year. Well, now maybe every other year or whatever. So there's a lot we haven't gone over. So I had to dig deep.
Yeah.
No, but you were 25 or so, I think, when your dad joined Van Halen, and like the career of everybody sort of went into a whole other level. Were you a part of that whole thing when it was going up and exploding? And what was it like to be 25 around Van Halen in the mid-'80s?
I don't mean to correct you, but 15.
15. Oh, you're right. I did my math wrong. 15 because you were born in 70.
Are you doing some COVID math? You know what?
I can't taste or add.
I don't mean to correct you, but yeah. 15,
no, correct me all you want.
So I was a young teenager. And yeah, I wasn't even a rock and roll fan. I had a roommate that was totally into Van Halen and Def Leppard and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I can't stand all that stuff. I was listening to, Kraftwerk, and I think that was pre-Howard Jones even. I don't
Rebelling
even know
against your parents, right?
Yeah, like Brian Eno, and, I was out there. So I was listening to some trippy stuff, Pink Floyd.
I love it all.
And, yeah, right. I mean, real music, and, Kraftwerk, real music.
Yeah, forget Van Halen. We want real music like Kraftwerk.
Exactly. And those of you that don't know, Kraftwerk was one of the first fully electronic bands, and they were using old Moogs and stuff that was really kind of new in the '60s, and they came about, I think, in the was it late 60s even, or maybe real early 70s? Anyway, they were these German guys. They were just so.
If you remember Mike Myers' Sprockets on SNL, that was Kraftwerk.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but he was even more interesting and dynamic than they were visually. Anyway, but they were great and brilliant. It was new to me, and it was kind of my era of music. I took control of my own music. And it wasn't Van Halen, it wasn't. So when Dad joined the band, I'm like, oh man, a hair band, I didn't know anything. But immediately when I came home from vacation, because I was going to school in Lake Placid, New York, on a working farm back then, less than 100 students. It was really a fantastic time in life as well. But when I come home on vacation, and meet everyone, I realized how wonderful these people were and how intense that life was and that creativity. And I was an artist by then, well into it. So seeing their creativity just explode was very inspiring. And like I said, we were neighbors and friends, and the families were one. So it was a great time, and I quickly learned to love the music because it was great music. I don't think you don't have to be a fan to appreciate how great that music was. I mean, it was like nothing else on the planet, and to see and be there for its creation was really exciting, because I got to see how driven and how inspired everybody was. Some of those songs came so quickly and so hard. Dad would be up all night writing in the studio downstairs, and, the do not disturb by any means. He just had a flow, and he worked really, really hard in that band. Dad always had a strong work ethic, but when he joined Van Halen, he physically trained like an athlete. No joke. He trained like an Olympian. When they went out on tour, he trained 6, 8, 10 hours a day, running and swimming and rowing and just doing calisthenics. And I mean, he really took that job seriously, but I had never seen him write so ferociously and be so deep in it with no conflict other than his own demons, and working through things. And I studied him and I watched him. I always have. And I think I picked up some of his methods and the way I do things. But it was really a special time, man. I can't express that enough. You can imagine the life that we've seen and been through and the stuff we've experienced. And that was so special and so intense. And I think I've looked forward in my own life and relationships to find that type of inspiration and intensity, and found it in little snippets here and there, but not for the duration Dad got to experience it and participate and contribute. It's amazing.
Yeah, your dad has one of those life experiences that I think nobody will ever be able to, get close to. So, well,
that stuff doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Life is too saturated. You don't have. I don't think you have those opportunities much, if any. I think they're rarer than they were back then.
Yeah, especially this year. I mean, everything's gone a little crazy. Yeah. As we all looked back on a lot of the stories and we were digging deeper into the stories behind the stories, I came across the one of, I think Eddie was up late at night on an acoustic. And I think that's when he hit the riff of Finish What You Started. He yelled down to your dad and said, we got to do this. And they stayed up all night and they finished What You Started. Was it like that all the time there? Just like Eddie run over, your dad would run over, and they just jam something out?
Yeah, in fact, I think that was part of the conflict that drove the band apart, was when Dad started his new family. He wanted to spend time with that family, and the demands of that family wanted to spend time with him. And Eddie's work ethic was manic. I mean, it was obsession. I mean, he worked night and day on stuff. He didn't sleep. And I think because of his lifestyle, he was able not to sleep, and work for 3 or 4 days straight without sleep. And he would ask that of Dad, because Dad was his partner and all that. And Dad didn't want, I shouldn't speak for Dad, but it appeared that was very hard on Dad. And I think that's part of the rift that grew between them, is because Eddie was obsessed with his work and his music. It was everything, It was everything. Not to say his family wasn't, but it was everything. He was a man possessed, and at least from what I observed, and it's hard to keep up with that, And I think Dad's indulgence. I didn't read the book. I never will, but Dad's book that he produced, I think he gives light to some of that. But his indulgence, I think he tried to keep up a bit. But Eddie was a master. Yeah, and I don't think anyone could keep up with him. But yeah, he was a man possessed. They produced so much material. The stuff that was left on the cutting room floor, I hope comes out someday. And I've heard that it's kind of come out in some of their other tracks that those songs were kind of rebuilt. And I have some friends that worked on some of those projects. But Eddie had a lot of ideas constantly, and I don't think they were regurgitated. I think he was a man that always had new ideas, and he was an inventor. He was a seeker. He was a visionary. And boy, that's hard to beat.
But the weird thing that I noticed, and it started to make sense, is Eddie wrote so much that he would do little things earlier on and pull them out later. Like the very end of Jump, it has that guitar lick that he then turned into the intro and guitar riff to, I think, Top of the World, which was, so he took a David Lee Roth lick that he worked on that never turned into anything and moved it into something new. And it was just amazing to watch all of these different songs that he had done apart 20 years ago and then apart now, and then he pulled it all together. It was just insane.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point too, because usually, from my experience, when you're with the record company, they want 50 songs. Give me 50 songs that you've written, and then you give them those 50 songs. Like, okay, which ones are we gonna do? You're going to do all new ones because we just want to make sure that you knew what you were doing and had the experience. And, record companies and your AR guy, they didn't want your old material. They didn't want you to pull anything out of the bag, when really, to me, that's some of your best material. That's your growth. And that's your, that's before it got corporate, but Van Halen managed to produce that all their life, and it worked because, like you said, Eddie, it wasn't like regurgitating ideas. It was Eddie would take something that he just gave you a hint of, and it wasn't celebrated. And then he'd take that and he would evolve it into something greater and bigger. And I think with Roth, he was really limited. And this is kind of common knowledge, but, Roth was a great performer and a great frontman and showman, but he wasn't, very prolific with his voice and his dynamics. And so when Dad joined the band, I think Eddie was so excited because he's like, now I have an instrument that can compete and hold up to mine.
Right.
And so I think with that, I think he'd pull out some of those little melodies that he really wanted to develop more, but maybe couldn't. So he just added them to what he was doing. I can't speak for him, but it's a really interesting idea, to entertain and kind of a thought experiment. It is that, with Dad, he might have brought some of these things to life and built them and evolved them because now he could explore them. And what an exciting, I got chills. Seriously, I got chills all at my back.
Wow.
What an exciting thing for an artist to meet a compatible artist that you can just explode with and keep evolving, and it never ends until the relationship unfortunately ended,
Yeah.
But what a beautiful thing. I mean, I hope your listeners and people can really appreciate it. I don't know if how Dad's articulated it, but it's very in the front of my mind right now, all that, as I'm reliving it.
Well, I know that we run your dad's show, the Top Rock Countdown, so he'll articulate, some of that. But I wanted to give him credit because the more old Van Halen videos I watched and live concert footage I watched, I realized I think your dad should probably get credit for the invention of yoga pants that every woman is wearing in public now.
Yeah, I'm not ready to revisit that stuff personally, but I just took down, I think, 6 or 7 boxes of clothes and stuff that I've had in my storage. When my parents separated, everything just kind of was turmoil. So I kind of collected things to kind of protect them. And I gave it all back, and I can't wait for Dad to go through it. I have almost everything you've seen in a photo session or an album cover or on stage. Dad has 4/5 of it, and I've had 1/5 of it, and I had all these boxes, and they still have more, full of those stage clothes and those pants and all the stuff from Red Rocker Clothing, because I helped design and work on that line for a couple years, and I found those Nike shoes which I posted with the embroidered
those are the coolest
on the back, and unfortunately the foam part totally perished, but most of the stuff is in perfect condition, and I kept it well, and I can't wait for Dad to go through it, but I'm itching to go back and review some of that footage and Live Without a Net and some of those videos just to celebrate Edward's life and their relationship and memories, because I haven't since that time. I haven't watched any of that in 20 somewhat years. So, and it's like my wife, she's from the Czech Republic. She wasn't a fan. when we met, I think our third date was the Staples Center when Dad and Eddie played and revived Van Halen together, or Van Hagar, as people call it.
Right.
And she didn't know any of the songs. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't speak English. She was just standing there like, what is this madness? Who is this guy I'm with? And what is all this? I don't know this. I just know this guy painting murals in my friend's house. That's how we met. And, and she was kind of put off by it, which was awesome. That's the woman you want to marry.
Right.
And so she didn't know Dad in that time, because Dad and I weren't exactly close, because he was still establishing his new family and I was going through a divorce, and life was hard, and we only connected when we kind of could, but he was going through a lot too and didn't want to absorb more. But my wife now knows him as a grandfather and a dad and an older man. He just turned 73 last week, and she doesn't know this youthful madman that we all grew up with, and so I can't wait to kind of watch it with her new eyes and have her look at me throughout the whole film and go, that is the same guy. It's like,
right.
Yeah, honey, that's why when we go places, people go crazy, and you're like, this is my father-in-law. Why are they going crazy? She still can't wrap her head around it, even after 16 years. She literally can't wrap her head around it. It's just, it's like it's awesome. And Misha, right? It's like,
yeah, no, she's great, and she is very demure, and I could totally see her being that. Like, on your third date, you took her to the Staples Center, and you're like, the guy on stage that they're screaming for is my dad, and she's like, I don't care, I like the pictures you draw. That's awesome.
But the funny thing is, I couldn't even say that because she didn't speak English. Literally, I mean that literally. We communicated through notes and through translation, and we didn't share a common spoken language. So literally, but I had taken her boss, which was my friend Rob, who I had taken him. I think it was a 2-night show the night before, and he's like, you need to take Misha. And I'm like, she doesn't know this stuff. I don't want to show her this world yet. He's like, she doesn't know who they are, but this will, because he called it. He's like, this is the last tour. This may be the last show. He goes, she needs to see it so she can look back and go, I saw that. No regrets. And I'm like, okay, I'll take her, but I didn't want to add that to our relationship, but it was great because she was so indifferent to it. She's just, and I remember too, because that was the first time I had seen Eddie since the first divorce and of the band. And he's standing at the top, the stage was elevated quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he was at the top of the stairs and he pointed down at me and I waved, and he came down the stairs and he had these iron fingers and he just stabbed my chest with that finger, and he's yelling about, Dad, you're dad, you're dad. He wasn't healthy then.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even understand him. He had already had part of his tongue removed, and he was really having some health problems, and I didn't understand half of what he said. And I looked at him, and his hair's over his eyes, and I said, Ed, I haven't seen you in years. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, oh man. And he grabs me and gives me a big kiss on the lips. And that was his thing. And, it was so awkward and uncomfortable. And he goes, I love you. You're such a good kid. It's so good to see you. And I introduced him to Misha, and she's like, hi, whoever this creepy guy is, because
right.
It was kind of creepy. And that was kind of the last time I saw him, at least that I remember. He got into his car with the lady he was seeing then, because he and Val were separated then, and I waved at Alex from a distance, and off they went.
Wow.
And that was kind of the last and only time I saw him. And that was really, really hard, and I'm trying to shake that memory. But yeah, it was really complicated, and all I really try to dwell on are those old times in Malibu, at the beach, and the families, and and all the touring, all the touring. So like I said, I used to study Dad and watch the band and listen, and it's just a little thing. I don't know, it was a little OCD thing I had going on as a kid, and after the show, no one was allowed backstage while they showered and changed and kind of came down off the show, and
right.
And I was the only one allowed in there. The wives weren't even allowed, so I'd go in there, and they'd all be sitting on the couch and kind of going over the show, and And then Ed would usually go, Aaron, well, what'd you think of the show? And we had like this little sit down critique thing. And I look back at it now and I go, God, what a dick teenager I was to sit there and critique Van Halen. It's like it seems like it was so callous, but it wasn't at all. It was really like a constructive thing because they knew that I was so passionate about observing and listening, and I could tell if Eddie was in his comfort zone or if he was swaying to one side or another. With the sobriety, he would play very differently and back and forth, and Alex would tease him sometimes because he did a little cymbal thing, the ding 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 ding, when Eddie would play, and he'd call me up there sometimes, and I'd always screw it up because I was so nervous, and Eddie would turn around and then see me and be like, hey, it's like you look at them for what they were to the rest of the world, but to us it was family, and we did things like that. And there's pictures of Wolfie on stage with little earmuffs on, and my brother Finn, that's my son, and my brother Andrew, because I'm thinking of him as a little kid with little earmuffs on, because when Dad wasn't around, my mom and I were left to raise my brother, so he was like a son. But it's you look at that and it's up there. The family was always around, and it was a really, really special.
You might be one of the only guys in the history of the world who got to go backstage after a concert and look at Eddie Van Halen and go, you missed a few notes, bro.
It's like
you told Eddie where he screwed up on guitar. That's got to be the weirdest thing ever.
Well, here's the thing, and this is the way I'd love you to look at it and not think of it like even I think of it now, is that these guys were perfectionists, and they really, really wanted to bring their absolute best every night. And depending, on how they felt and what they were doing extracurricular wise, that was challenged. And Eddie was very shy, and he was very, introverted, and he was an artist, and so he wanted to perfect it. And I don't know that he trusted many people, and he trusted me and Dad too, and I think it was always good and positive and constructive in a way that wasn't offensive, because I don't think that's in my character.
That's definitely not in your character.
Yeah, to be that guy.
Except for when you and I are hanging out.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, we're off record. No. That's what I mean. You and I have had some very, very intense and intimate discussions on life, and we've shared some wonderful, wonderful moments.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in Arizona that time. So
that was great.
It's really, really great. And I'm very honored to be part of your life in there.
I'm honored to be part of yours, and I'm thinking, let's grab that box of stuff you got from the old days. You bring some of that, you bring some cars, and you bring some of your art, and let's own a museum and gallery in the visitor capital of America here in Florida.
Well, first of all, I took it all down to Dad, but that's what I think. That's what I feared back in the day, is that stuff would be lost to time. It would be discarded, or it would be thrown away in anger or given away. And so I think I've always kind of been a curator in life, and I don't think that'll ever change. And I'm really pleased. I kept some of that stuff. I mean, there was a hat from the Rock and Jock. Remember the MTV Rock and Jock games from the first one? Dad participated in the first one.
Holy cow.
And so I still had the hat, and I still had the shirt. And I mean, like I said, I had so many suits. He wore those outrageous suits by Matsuda and Nicole, Versace, and then his designer was Audrey Carter. And I had all those in there. I had those maroon and black pinstripe stretchy pants, those jeans that he wore on numerous album presentations and photos and such. I've seen him,
You realize that you have Halloween costume contests beat forever because you can put on your dad's actual stuff. You're not going to go as your dad. You're just like, I am.
Okay, now wait a minute. Now wait a minute. Dad had the cocaine diet back then, so he was a 26. He was a size 26, and
he was a 26.
He was a 26, dude. I can't even get my leg in his waistline. back then.
Is that why he moved to the stretchy pants later on? Because he lost that 26?
I don't know, man. But, he's still good. Dad still has a small waist. You just have to get it below the midline.
Right.
But, no, Dad is still very fit. He's I don't hike with him because I can't keep up.
Wow.
And I live at altitude. His conditioning is really good. I mean, he still has his lungs and he still does it. That's a lifetime commitment. But yeah, back then he was really tiny. And if you look at back even before Montrose with the Justice Brothers and stuff, some of those photos are out there. He was really tiny. I mean, you look at him and you're like, people get that small that aren't like have a health problem,
right?
I mean, I've seen that stuff during wartime, but geez, he's so thin.
The thing is, coming from those of us, and I know you realize this, but it's probably harder for you to see it that way because you were always there with him in person. For a lot of us who were never there in person, these guys look enormous on records and TV,
Yes.
So none of us have any idea that your dad's small. We're like, he's the biggest rock star in the world. And you're like, he's 5'5".
Yeah, he must be 6'7". Yeah. No, actually, he was 5'8". Maybe 5'9" back then, but yeah,
probably 5'4" now.
Yeah, unfortunately, we all turn into hunchbacks.
We all shrink. Yep.
Plus, you got to think he was jumping off 6 foot, 8 foot stacks of speakers.
Oh yeah,
with a 40-pound guitar around his neck and landing it. I'm sure he's compacted some of that spine, man.
Oh, he and I can talk back disc problems all day long then.
Oh,
yeah.
Man, But, I mean, dude, I can go on. It's people say, you should write a book. I don't trust the accuracy of my brain. Plus I'm an artist, I'm a creative. I'm the guy that can solve a math problem, but not repeat it. And a math guy is going to go, this makes no sense. I'm like, no, it works.
No, it works.
If you draw a line on this and it becomes this, then it works. I'm that guy. So, I don't trust my memories. But no, I do have a lot of wonderful stories and things growing up and a perspective that I think is extremely rare. And I love opportunities like this to share it, especially during times like this where we all want to hear them.
Well, we should start a new series, which is just you telling stories you remember.
I'll start crying and shit. No.
You're allowed to. It's okay. You're the one telling the stories. You can react however you want. So, hey, brother, it's so good talking to you again. Hopefully, likewise. We all get to travel soon, and if not, maybe you guys make it out here to Florida and hang out with us.
Yeah, so you were in Texas too, weren't you?
I was in Texas when you and I first met, and it was just beginning of 2019 that I moved out to Florida. So I haven't been here long, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, and then Jeff moved too. The Allens moved. And,
yeah, they moved to Albuquerque.
Yeah, that was kind of a shock.
So they're closer. I'm further away, but my beaches are a lot better.
Yeah, I bet. Boy, life just changes abruptly, doesn't it? But
so
everybody seems to be doing well, and I hope you're doing well too, and really look forward to spending some face-to-face time with you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we're in the same general vicinity, you're easily worth an hour drive to go anywhere here to there. So keep in touch. We'll keep the Facebook friendship going, and we'll bump into each other again soon, brother.
Absolutely, my man. And anything else I can share or you want to know, just hit me up and I'm all yours. Thanks for listening, everyone.